Hello everyone. It's not every day that you get a big reaction out of me. It's just kind of not my style. I'm not someone that uses all those catchy things that gets people to click on their videos, the yelling at the camera, the being very demonstrative about your word choice. That's just not my style. OMG, this is the best thing ever. This changes FPV forever. Like it's on crack. Holy catfish. That's just not how I do things. The most you get out of me is, this is pretty darn good. Well, I'm here today to tell you that the Foxeer Toothless 2 Nano, it's pretty darn good. We're going to jump right into the flight footage. We're going to start off here. This is from my iPhone 7 to give you an idea how dark it is. And we're starting with what's most impressive, at least in my opinion. This is just kind of a scan of the neighborhood. There are no street lights. All we have are yard lights or house lights out in the neighborhood, and you can see that. And this is, again, is from my iPhone 7. Now let's roll into the footage from the actual camera, and this is being recorded by a RunCam onboard recording straight from the camera. There is no VTX at play here a little bit, and I was really surprised with what I was seeing. What I was seeing was actually better than I could see with my own eye. Now we do have an overcast day, so that matters. That probably does mean we get some light reflection. From behind our neighbor's house, about a half a mile, maybe a little less than that, there is a shopping center over there. It's a big grocery store. There's a strip mall. There's a gas station. There's actually a couple of gas stations. So that's kind of a retail area. So we could be getting some light reflecting off of those clouds back to the camera. But I've already shown you what the iPhone video looked like, so that's kind of the best way I could give you a straight-up comparison between what we're seeing in the camera and what we saw on the iPhone or in the naked eye. This is the flight section because I decided to go for a cruise. It gives you a little bit of an idea of how it looks like as I move throughout this neighborhood, in and out of the lights. And I think this is really, I don't know, am I just not well versed enough with night flying, or is this the best night camera I've seen so far? In my opinion, yeah, it is. But you tell me, am I nuts? Am I crazy? Am I missing something? Is there another camera that's come out previously that's as good? Remember, this is a nano camera. I have the micro as well, which has a much bigger lens, and I'll be testing that here as the days allow it. But these take about 3-4 days to test, and I wanted to get a bunch of different footage because mainly it was surprising to me. So I don't want to leave any stone unturned, but that's a sample of how the night footage looked, and that was probably the most impressive part for me. So if you agree with me, if you think this is pretty good, send the link to friends. Get them to compare it. Maybe they're aware of a camera that we haven't seen yet that we need to be comparing this against. This is an overcast day. You can see we've still got some rain on the ground, and we've got lots of clouds in the sky. Again, I wanted to be thorough, and I had the opportunity because we did have storms come through and the clouds hung around afterwards that I could take this out and go for a fly. You get to see the red of the truck. That red truck, that's one of those things that kind of sticks out. I know I repeat myself on these camera reviews quite a bit, but red's one of those colors that can really pop or shimmer or shake or look odd. But that particular case, I thought the red looked pretty true to life, which is impressive to me because, you know, again, cameras can all represent that particular color or other colors differently. Also, I found that I was having troubles with low RSSI, and it's a little bit comical, but I'll share with you just because I'm not that prideful, I guess. Somehow my antennas, both antennas off of my receiver, had come loose. When I took it apart and took the heat shrink off, the antennas just fell off. So I was flying this around for multiple flights with shady antennas. Oh, we're taking a look at the neighbor's garage. Lots of straight lines, the shingles. You could take a look at distortions, fisheyes, anything you want to look at from a lens perspective that gives you an idea of how the camera might represent what you do and don't want. But I was really surprised. So apparently when I originally built this little sort of camera testing drone, I didn't do a very good job of making sure the heat shrink was shrunk down all the way to make sure that those antennas couldn't pop on and off. And this isn't something I'm crashing, at least not very dang often. So I presume that this has just come from me handling the quad and putting cameras in and out of the quad for testing purposes that, you know, knocked things around or shook them loose and then the antennas popped off. But so this gives you an idea of what kind of range you can get from an FrSky XM Plus without its antennas. We're starting to get to that time of year where we get a lot more greenery, at least at the grass. The leaves will start to come through in the coming months as we get more rains and we get more sun to where the trees can start to blossom. And we got the chance to see some flowers over at our neighbor's house, nice flowers that they planted. Let's go into our next flight. This flight is also a little bit overcast, but as you see as we go during the flight, we do get a lot more sun. And when I watch this close up, tell me what you see. Is there a little bit of noise in my recording? I'm wondering if my onboard recording, my Runcam SD card recorder, is possibly has introduced some noise, or is that normal? Am I just all of a sudden super sensitive to what I'm seeing? You tell me. Again, I appreciate your input. Anytime you leave a comment, you don't have to go back and edit your comment. If you have, multiple comments as the video unfolds, that's fine. I appreciate all the input that I get from anybody who comes to watch the video. And as you can see, as we start to fly around more and more and more, we get more sunlight. And that's why I included this flight and didn't wait for a full sun day. Nice little orbit around that tree, if I don't say so myself, with very little camera angle. We go nice and slow. Kind of fly directly at the sun a few times during this flight footage. And you can see we've got the Foxeer, the voltage and the runtime all right there on screen. You can take that off screen, as you can with just about every camera I've come across. That's the default of how they come. I didn't tinker with any of the settings on the camera. This is the default settings. You can tweak these out to your heart's desire. We've talked about it a lot before, how if I start down this road of tweaking out the settings to make some things appear better or work better, that gets me down a rabbit hole where I don't know where to stop. And this is the shot where I wanted to kind of fly straight towards the sun, just so you get an idea of what the any sort of lens flare, anything you might get from the camera. And also, flying it straight at the sun is one of those things you need to be able to grade of how you can see the areas that you're flying in, not just the sun area. I love that shot when the sun's behind us and we get to go cruise around and the sun puts the shadow of the quad on the ground. I think we've talked about that before in other videos, where that's eye-catching and almost for me at the point to where I have to make sure I'm focusing on where I'm flying and not staring at my shadow on the ground. I really wanted to get behind this tree quite a bit because I thought that was another interesting thing that I haven't done in the past to kind of give you another idea, because I know I do the cloth test and we'll get to that eventually, but I'm wondering how functional that cloth test is to where I cover up the lens and I have it at different lengths. And that's probably one of the only areas that I can really fault this camera. But again, I'm looking for your input on the camera and the grading of this camera. But you'll notice when we do the cloth test that it's not the fastest at the light changes, especially when you get the cloth all the way against the lens and then you pull it off as you're facing into the sun. We'll see that here in just a minute. I think that's a pretty good amount of flight that we've seen for flying out in cloudy, sunny. What's next? We have a dusk flight we need to get to. So I should get that footage rolling here. So as you can see, the sun's very, very low. If I remember correctly, this is about 10 to 15 minutes before the Weather Channel says is sunset from my area. So that gives you another idea. Again, I'm trying to be thorough, trying to give you all little bits. Again, I don't try to sell you on these things, and sometimes I feel like I do a poor job of it, and other times I'm encouraged to be more dramatic about my opinion or give my opinion in a stronger way. That's just kind of not my gig, because I don't want to sell you these things. I want to show it to you. Then you decide whether it's something that you like. I think in this case, from what I'm seeing, I am trying to be more dramatic because I'm very impressed with the quality of this camera. I don't think it's going to work for every quad because, doing micros, I might want to save some weight. And so I might give up some of the quality of all the different light variations that this camera seems to handle very, very well. If you're someone who's flying a traditional quad, or you're flying a quad where an extra 2 grams might not be that big a deal to you, this is a very viable solution. I don't know if this is in stock yet, but if it is, I'll put links to various shops down below where you can get it. At this time, stock getting back on shelves has been a little bit of a challenge with the lack of flights around the world, especially coming from China to other locations. So stock may be in short supply, or it could be a week or two out yet, or it just might not be out just yet. I should have checked that before I recorded the video, but I didn't. I guess I got overly excited. That's a pretty good sample of our dusk sort of flight. You don't really see any shadows on the ground because the dusk is so low. This is our cloth test. It's not a full sun cloth test. You know, unfortunately, I had some clouds covering it up, but it is full bright. You can kind of see the impact of the full brightness and the surrounding areas. And then you get to see when I take the cloth from varying distances away from the camera to block that light, how it responds. And I think it responds relatively slowly when I put the cloth all the way against the lens. And I think that's something that you'll probably pick up here as well. I do it several times. I do all the tests a couple of different times to give you the best possible sample of the camera and how it responds to all these different scenarios. This is just the settings. They did this on the desk. Go through and show you all the different settings that you might want to see or look for. I didn't see anything that was actually all that interesting other than the special settings section, so you might want to slow down at that point in time, because I do go through these relatively quickly. I do have a fan on my VTX to make sure it's staying nice and cool, but I do try to work through getting these settings, so you may want to use that gear icon and slow the playback down a little bit in order to be able to see everything that you might want to see. Of course, my voice, as the narration goes, will sound a little bit odd if you do that, but I think it's serviceable, and those that want to do that, you sure have the option too. Sorry, my phone was going off. I get text messages whenever we get a delivery from Amazon. Hopefully everybody's doing well and finding things to cope with the time that we're currently in, and you're spending some extra time with those that live within your household, and you can find some way of enjoying that time together. I think I stated this in my previous giveaway video. Oh, and go back on the channel. If you're just looking at this recently, go back on the channel. I do have kind of a guessing game sort of giveaway. It's actually a guess the fix on a quad. You might want to get involved with that. I'm doing basically three $50 giveaways. So we buy parts from an FPV shop of some sort, and then I send those parts directly from the shop to you. So 3 people can win, $50 for each person. So you might want to go back to the channel and get familiar with that if you're not already. Play along. It's fun. We're trying to do one of those every once in a while, probably about every other week. It's just kind of my way of trying to have some fun and not take this whole YouTube thing too seriously, and as well as trying to bring some levity or some humor, something fun to everybody's lives who comes to the channel. And that's all of our settings. Let's head back to the desk. Here on the desk, the most important part, at least to the people who come to my channel, is probably outside of the image, is the weight. And with its full cable as well as the control cable still attached, we're looking at 5.33 grams. Compare that to one of the lightest camera lenses on the market, that is the Runcam Nano 3, comes in at a little under 1.5 grams. Of course, as is the case with all Nano cameras, it's a 14 by 14 millimeter camera. From the lens to the back, looks like it's 19.5 millimeters. It looks like we have 62 millimeters of wire length on there. Note, this is the full weather 1200 TV line Starlight edition. There could be other editions. It does come with this fold-out manual. It also comes with a control board. We've got some washers and some screws for mounting in there, the adapter plate for larger mounting purposes, and a sticker. And if you didn't notice, these wires are directly soldered, so there's no connector. I know at least a handful of you have been raving about the fact that we need to get rid of the connector and just do direct wiring, and so we have that in this camera. Give you a little tour of the camera if you want to look at something specific. We've seen it all, and now for those of you that have been waiting clear till the end to leave your comment about this camera, what do you think? Am I being too dramatic? Am I missing something that downgrades it a little bit? The price point, I don't know right at the moment, but I'll put links down in the video description to where you can compare the price point and the various vendors that are carrying the camera, or at least maybe listing the camera. And maybe that's the kicker. Maybe this camera is so good, but the price point's too high. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's budget-friendly price. We'll have to wait till they come out to find out. If you have any other comments, questions, suggestions, or otherwise, please let me know in that section down below. I do appreciate your time, and thanks for watching.